Hello, hello, hello. I am back. Look who is back. I am back. I am back. I am back. I am excited to be back. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world watching this. Even if you're watching a re-airing of this or the rebroadcast. Hello, how are you? I am Willie Cartwright with from Save to Sane. I am back. I've been on hiatus for 3 months, I believe, but I am back fully recharged, ready to go, and ready to kick this thing off. Thank you, Christine, for being for being the first person there on. Thank you so much. There was another Mr. KGB made a couple of comments. Looks like early this morning, so I appreciate that. Audio is good. Thank you, Christine. I certainly appreciate that. Neo, what's up? I miss you too. Neo checked on me. Yeah, Neo, I've been so busy. I had to take that break. School from the spring wore me out, and so I needed to take that break. But I appreciate you checking on me. I told you I always got your back, and I see you got my back, so I appreciate it. Glad to have you here. Yeah, appreciate it, Neo. Um, Taisha said that she's going to try to drop in as well. So, as I always do, let me think a couple of people. Begin with Taisha Essick, who is responsible for getting me started on this. She saw some stuff, some things that I had going on, some videos that I made when she was in her transition, her deconversion, and she said that those videos did a lot to help her. And so she reached out to me. So she sort of put me on this podcasting thing. So I'm always in debt to her, appreciation to her. And secondly, as always, my wife, my number one fan, my backbone, my support system, my wife Salima. Thank you so much for everything that she done and will continue to do. And for all of you, Neo and Christine, thank you so much. Mr. KGB, if you're still there, thank you. And so I'm back. I've had 3 months to rest. I've been checking out a lot of stuff on social media. It seems like there are a lot of more of us in this space, Neo. There's a lot of people I see on YouTube and TikTok, especially TikTok. And I guess because that's the space I'm in. But I see a lot of people talking about religion, a lot of people everywhere, everything from people who are beginning to question their faith all the way to full blown atheists or agnostics. Um, Talking about this subject. So it is gaining traction. People are starting to question. They're starting to ask, "What's up with this religious thing? Should I be doing this? Should it be part of my life?" So I think it is awesome. So glad to see you still out there, NeoX doing your thing, and so we want to continue to do that. So yeah, so I've been watching. I've been seeing people. So yeah, so this is awesome. So I am back. Who do we have here? Some chick named Star. Some chick named Star. Hello, how are you? Glad to have you with us. I was wondering. I didn't know how many people would join since I've been gone for a while, but I'm glad to see that we have who we have, and I know there's more people out there who just haven't made a comment. But if you're out there, you're listening, please check in, say hello, make a comment. So definitely glad to have you. So what else? So what else is going on before we get started? Like I said, I'm back. Again, we're gonna do this thing every other week, starting this week, and I guess the next time we do it will be like the 14th of September, and we're gonna continue every other week until I need another break, or we'll just continue to do this thing. So it's great. School is awesome. Those of you know that I am in school working on my master's in religious studies. So I'm just not doing this as something to do. I'm serious about this thing. This is my future. This is what I will be doing for the foreseeable future, for the rest of my life. I've also added professor to my title. I am teaching religious studies class. It's not. I thought it was going to be freshmen, but it's undergrads, but at all different levels. I have a few freshmen, sophomores, some juniors, but I have no seniors. So I'm teaching an intro to religion class at Georgia State every Monday and Wednesday evening. So I have long days. I'm also taking classes and I'm working on a thesis that I'm writing that eventually will turn into hopefully a PhD thesis that would eventually turn into another book. So working on that. I'm also working on a professor at the university. He and I and a couple other students are working on a paper to be published with the largest religious organization in the country, and we will argue that paper, present that paper in front of the organization at their national meeting in November. And that paper is about non-belief in the African American community. Everything that I'm working on in school is about non-belief, secularism, especially in the African American community. It is about the ramifications of us becoming more secular, our community being open and accepting to people who believe differently, not just Christianity or Islam. People who believe differently, who consider themselves spiritual, who believe, who follow some traditional African religion or whatever it may be, all the way down to if you're just a full out non-believer in anything. We're creating a space for all of us. We're kicking in the door and saying we're here, and we will be heard, and we are not going away. So we're working on that paper. Um, Professor also just got back from the Netherlands, presenting another paper that he and I worked on with a similar topic. He presented that in the Netherlands, but this one we're working on together. We're going to present this one together in November, so it should be great. So I'm really, really busy as I work on my thesis as well. So good things, but it's all the things that I really want to be doing. So I'm really excited about that. So that's what's going on with me. Uh, Today's topic, let's get into it. Today's topic, thank you, Christina. Thank you, Neo. Today's topic is, oh, that's the topic for the next time. Okay. I got a hot one for the next time, but we'll do this one first. African Americans will remain in poverty as long as we continue to follow or embrace Christianity. Christianity is making us poor. So we'll talk about that. I want please send me your comments, and we'll as I always do, we will read these comments online and get some questions and some conversations going about these comments. But let me start. I kind of always start these off with um, something peculiar. If something peculiar that happened to me over the previous week. So I've had about 3 months of peculiar things happening, but fortunately, because of my memory, it was something that just happened. So I'm able to rehash that to you guys. And I just kind of want to bring that back. Taisha, what's going on? I am so happy to have you. You guys, everyone say hello to Taisha. Thank you, Taisha. I appreciate it. I'm glad to have you. So now, oh, we are good to go now. I am good. But anyway, let me tell you a quick little story. So, I'm in my second year at Georgia State, like I said, working on a master's degree in religious studies. The new cohort of students that just got in their first year. One of the students is a young lady from Nigeria, and so she's over here. This is her first. She's literally just got to the states, so she's brand new, but she's a diehard Christian. And one of my professors is she's a Christian, but she practiced her Christianity through uh, traditional African means. I mean, she says that she does uh, ancestral veneration. She has crystals, the whole 9 yards. Everything about her is African centered. Her Christianity is African centered. And so she has like 6 degrees, including 3 in divinity, and I mean all kind of stuff. Heavy, but she's really, really fun. So she got to talking about her idea, her beliefs about Jesus Christ, and that she believed that he was married or dating Mary Magdalene, and that she don't understand why Jesus Christ has to be asexual or not sexual at all. And she just went on and on and on and on. I was laughing the whole time. It was great. But this Nigerian student discovered that I was a non-believer, and she said after class, and I've been knowing her now we've been in school for about 2 weeks now, and so we have a couple of classes together. So she said to me the other day that she has issues with me because I put my disbelief in her face. She says, "You put your disbelief in my face, and I just have issues with that." I said, "Okay." I said, "That's fine." I said, "But let me say this to you." I said, if I get on my social media page right now, every other person is going to be proclaiming how great their Jesus is, how wonderful their God is. I said, when I walk out of this school and walk downtown, I'm going to see people on every other corner, whether it be Jehovah Witness or Hebrew Israelites, again talking about God, talking about Jesus. I said, but I don't get upset. I don't get upset at all because it's their prerogative. They can do what they want to do. I said, and so the same thing for you. If people like me want to say that we're not believers or question what's going on, I'm not sure why you get upset. Again, based on how much I mean, television shows, music, billboards, especially in the Deep South, you hear God, God, Jesus, Jesus all over the place. And she actually said, "You know what? You're absolutely right." And so she said, I'm gonna rethink this." So it's just one of those things that the audacity of a Christian to say that they're tired of hearing people talk about their disbelief when Jesus and God is all over the place. You can't turn on television or radio or have a conversation or social media without hearing it. So I just thought it was kind of funny and ironic that we did that. Uh, is Yeah, it's more Jesus for her. It is all over the place. It is all over the place. Tay, you say what? You try to come in for a quick minute shortly. The little princess commands. Oh, I understand. I understand. We're just glad to have you. If you can make it back, that'd be awesome. If not, then we certainly understand. Go take care of the little princess. So we're glad, but we're glad to have you here. Good. TLX, thank you. TLX, glad to have you. So then we're gonna get into this thing. Why is Christianity not making us poor, because collectively we're at the bottom run, right? So financially, from a collective standpoint, we already know where we stand economically. But as long as we continue to embrace Christianity, I think we're going to continue in that line. And let me try to draw the connection to you, because I'm just not throwing this out here. There is a connection as to why we're in the economic condition that we're in, and our devoutness to Christianity. And I want to break it down primarily with two entities. First of all, is the mentality. What is it about Christianity that gives us or creates in us a poverty mentality? And then secondly, I want to talk about it from a practicality standpoint. Our financial resources going toward everything that's Christianity and what it's doing to us individually, what it's doing to us collectively, what it's doing to us in our community. And so I want to touch on those. And again, any comments, questions that you guys may have, please put them in the chat, and we'll chat it up. As you can see, I got a brace on. I think I got corporate tunnel. I'm not sure, but I got a little pain. So I went to the doctor. He told me that it was corporate tunnel. So we're good. But outside of that, I'm doing great. But anyway, so let's get into this. So the mentality behind this, and I always try to do this. I always try to speak in terms, first of all, of what my experiences have been, because I can't speak for everyone else. But I do think that my experiences are uh, general and sort of par for the course. Hey Sharon, what's going on, Sharon? Glad to have you. So I remember early on when I first was going through the indoctrination of Christianity at an early age. The first thing I remember vividly hearing was how wretched how I was, and how poor I was, and how I was from the dirt, and that I was nothing without God. Now that may have been in reference of us physically, but it resonates with us in our mind, our subconsciously, about our finances as well. Um, and so we go through life and we think that that we are wretched and that we're worthless, and that if it wasn't for this God, that we wouldn't have anything. And so that plays on our mind, and so we take this into our adult life, and not only uh, do we accept this state of mind, but we become comfortable with not having much. and we become expecting of not having much to the point that we even start saying that the reason why I don't have much is because of the devil, and those of us who are at the bottom will die and eventually be at the top when we're in heaven. So that's the lie that we've created. We've said that because we're suffering here on earth, and part of that suffering is financial suffering. Because we're suffering here on earth, once we get to heaven, we're no longer going to suffer from a financial standpoint. What is the saying? The something about the you'll be at the bottom and then you'll be at the top. I gotta come. I gotta remember the phrase some kind of way. But anyway, it was in reference. It was in reference to that. Everyone is saying hi to each other. Appreciate that. Appreciate that. And so we think about that. Think about how we become comfortable with being in the condition that we're in. Also, as a collective community, we become again comfortable with our collective position of being financially destitute as a collective community because we believe, some of us believe, some of Christians believe that this is our punishment from God because we strayed away from Him centuries ago, and that this punishment for 400 years, part of this punishment is for our financial destitute, and that is just crazy to me. So we begin to accept these things. We begin to practice these things. We're comfortable with being in the financial conditions that we're in, and we're not looking to get out because we start to think that if we're doing well in life, then we must be doing something for the devil. So think about it. When I was in church, I remember hearing that if you're doing well, then the devil already got you. But if you're struggling, right, then that's God working you. I mean, that's God testing you. So it almost creates in us a situation where we much rather struggle because we think that is representative of God um, than if we're doing well. Because doing well means that I don't have any issues. So that means that the devil is not testing me. And why is the devil not testing me? Because he already got me. So follow the line here. Connect the dots here. If I'm doing well, then that means that the devil is not after me. He's not causing me problems. Why? Because he already got me. So that means subconsciously I don't want to do well. I want to struggle because that shows that that the devil doesn't have me and I'm going through stuff and God is going to bring me through all of these things. And so that again creates in us a situation where we are looking forward to this struggle because we think it is representative of God. I've mentioned this before on this podcast. There's a writer, a historian, a professor by the name of Dr. James Cone. He passed away a few years ago, but he wrote a series of books starting in the 60s and then the 70s and 80s. But one of the books that he wrote is called the Cross and the Lynching Tree. It might be the lynching tree and the cross, but I think it's the cross and the lynching tree. And in his book, he's the first person to really talk about liberation theology. And so in the book, he talks about why African Americans are so devout to Christianity and Jesus. And he says it is in part because we believe that we have a shared suffrage with Jesus Christ. That represents the cross, and our suffrage is represented by the lynching tree. Well, you can also extrapolate that out to us financially because all of it is part of our overall struggle. So we have this tendency, we collectively African Americans, we have this tendency to want to struggle because we believe that it brings us closer to God and closer to Jesus, right? And so it is insane, it is insanity, it is asinine that we believe this. But many of our people in our community believe this and deal with this. Now, it may be a way that we deal with our collective poverty, but this is something real in our community. A couple of comments. Neo X said Christianity really messed us up as a people. Absolutely, it continues to mess us up as a people. Thank you, Neo X. Please hit the like button. Um, was it beautifully yours? Thank you for joining. It's the Crossing the Lynching Tree by James Cone. Yep, absolutely. I have the book. I've read the book several times. I've even cited the book in some of my writings. He has another one. I think it's called God of the Oppressed. So it's similar. So he has several books. I think God of the Oppressed is one of his as well. I think I have that one as well. But it's along the same lines. Yeah, please check it out. It gives you insight into our collective mentality about suffering. And again, I'm not talking about just the physical suffering. I'm talking about our financial suffering. I'm talking about suffering when relationships. I'm talking about family suffering. We are a people who are filled with suffering, no matter where you look. And so, as long as we hold on to this Christianity, especially the old interpretation that our parents and grandparents have, interpreted through, we're going to continue with this mentality, and this mentality stops us from really going at the things we need to go. Stop us from really becoming successful financially. And I'm not on here advocating that we should be grinding and hustling, and I mean, because that's a whole nother discussion. That's a whole nother discussion that I really don't want to get into because I might piss some people off. But needless to say, I think that is something else that has been abused in our community and is not healthy for the most part. But what I am saying is that um, we shouldn't we shouldn't be in a position to where we can't enjoy or can't have the basics, and then being in that position find ourselves comfortable in that position, find ourselves even wanting to be in that position because of our relationship or our belief system or our interpretation of the Bible and God and wanting to be close to God. So, and we even cite, scriptures in the Bible. I think there's a scripture where a rich man asked, "What must I do to get into heaven?" And Jesus or God told him that you need to sell all of your worldly goods and become destitute, basically. And so, our people will cite scriptures like that as to why, we should be this whole humility thing. It just messes up our mind totally. And so I want us to be mindful as we operate and as we move. Those of us who are still part of the Christian faith, those of us who have completely come out of it, but was indoctrinated early on, like I was, and for decades. And those of us who are back and forth, who are questioning, who are starting to question. We have to be conscious of everything that we do and how we move and how our relationship with Christianity, God and Jesus affects the way that we see things. And so I had to become conscious of that as well. I grew up in a household where, my mother was, and not only is it in the mindset, but as I think back to my mother, from a practical standpoint, we struggled. I mean, we were really poor. I would come home sometime, the lights would be off, the gas would be off, like many people who I grew up with. But my mother, she would never take a job if she had to work on a Sunday. So from a practical standpoint, you can see how her belief, her interpretation of that belief system, her devoutness to the church and to Christianity caused us to stay in the condition that we were in. Good jobs, but she would have to work on a Sunday, and she refused. She never would work a job. I don't care if our lights were off at the time that she got offered that job. If that job required her to work on a Sunday, she refused. And I remember once when I was much older, because as a kid I was afraid of her. When I was older, I think I was in college, and again she was struggling, and I came home and she was telling me that she had a job offer, but they wanted her to work on a Sunday, and she said, "No, I'm not going to work on a Sunday." And I point blank said to her mom, God don't care about you missing church if you need to work to pay bills. I don't really understand that. I never got that, but again, she refused to do it. So So again, this is just not her or a few people. This is a large segment of our community that is accepting of our financial condition because we believe that it brings us closer to God. It's part of the universal struggle of our collective struggle. It is part of this 400-year punishment that we're supposedly so-called under. And I thought that we were supposed to be over this so-called 400-year punishment back in um, 2019. If you look at, people who talked about this out there, uh, in the universe talked about how our punishment started in 1619. Well, again, which is crazy to me, if we're being punished because of what we did during biblical time, why is it that it took 2,000 years for us to be punished, and why is it we talking hundreds of generations later who has to be punished for something that happened 2,500 years ago or so? Right? Don't make none of this stuff really makes sense if you sit down and think about it. But anyway, so our 400 years of being in bondage over here in this country as Africans, as removed Africans, enslaved Africans, and now African Americans, supposedly we're supposed to be in this condition from 1619 to 2019. Here we are 4 years later, and I don't see much has changed in our collective condition. But no one talks. None of the religious people, the diehard Christians, the devout people talk about that now. But they talked a lot about that around the year 2019. But so yeah, so let's just be mindful of how we operate in that sense. And those of us who've been indoctrinated with that foolishness, that poison us. And so I want to kind of switch gears now. I want to get into the practicality of it. And so we all understand and we all know that as a community, we have spending power. And to an extent, we actually have financial resources. We don't have much of anything because we mismanage and our priorities are wrong. But again, that's a whole nother conversation. But along those lines, part of the mismanagement and the screwed up priorities, we have to lie at the feet of the church and our belief system because of the enormous amount of resources, financial resources that we give to the church. And this is from a practical standpoint. Those of you who have my book, From Saved to Sane, My Journey Away from Christianity, there's the book. For those of you who want to get it. I wrote in the book on page 47, I think it's actually 46, and I'm doing the research for the book. Live Streets Research, which is a research company, shows that Black churches have collected more than $420 billion in tithes and donations since 1980. This survey this research was done in 2009. So, over a 29-year period, the Black community has spent $420 billion into the church. That is $14 billion a year. That is over $1 billion a month. And then the most recent individual stat that they had for this research was in 2006. I'm sure there's some more current, up to date, but this is just 2006. The Black community put about $17 billion into the Black church. So $420 billion over a 29-year period. So let's break that down. So we're talking about $1.5 billion, just over $1 billion per month. 14 to 17 billion dollars per year that African Americans put into, and this is Black churches. So think about the number of African Americans that don't attend predominantly Black churches, that attend the Joel Osteen churches of the world, Jensen Franklin, the church that I attended for a long time up in here in Gainesville, Georgia, which is a mega church with multiple locations in multiple states. So that's even more money. But think about what we could have done with that money and what we could do with that money. Texas Goddess, thank you for checking in. How you doing? Glad to see you. Beautifully yours, said billion with a capital B. Wow. Yes. It's just think. And so those of you, and we talk about this a lot, especially in our community, those of you who live in predominantly black communities, not in the suburbs, but pretty much in the cities, and those who have lived in predominantly black communities, we see a church on every corner, but we also see tremendous poverty, and we see things that never change. We see conditions that never change. We see rundown buildings. We see homeless people. I live in Atlanta, and I don't live in this. I used to live in the suburbs. I did it for a long time, but I live in Decatur. Those of you familiar with Atlanta, I live in Decatur, Georgia. I literally live 1 minute from the Atlanta city line. So Decatur is a close suburb of Atlanta, but it parallels Atlanta. It resembles the city of Atlanta. There is a lot of poverty. Um, Georgia State, which is a in-town university, it is downtown. There are literally, when I tell you, there are literally right across the street from the main building that I go into, there's a park, and that park is nothing but homeless people. Uh, when it rains, the homeless people walk across the street and they camp out underneath the the awnings of the building so that they don't get wet. And it is hundreds of homeless people there at the university in the city. So you think about our communities. Beautifully USA. I only know about Stone Mountain. I visited twice. Stone Mountain is right next to. Well, okay, so I live in Decatur. The county is DeKalb County. Decatur is in DeKalb County. Stone Mountain is in DeKalb County. Stone Mountain is right next door to Decatur. So I go to Stone Mountain Park to hike, and it's about a 15-minute drive for me. So yeah, it's right next door. But there is tremendous amount of homelessness in DeKalb County. DeKalb County is a predominantly black county. Decatur City is predominantly black, and it is a tremendous amount of poverty. My wife and I, we drive around, and we used to drive. We before we've driven around with these bags with food that don't go bad and socks and a bunch of other things. So we make, 6, 12, 8 bags. And as we're out in the city handling our business, we see someone that's homeless, we'll stop and we'll give them the bag. It'll have socks in there, it'll have soap, it might have toothpaste, it'll have some non-perishable food in there, some water, because the homelessness is just that rampant. And so you think about all of the churches in these black, and there are a ton of churches in the community. You would think that something could be done with the amount of money, the 14 to $17 billion a year that we put, and it's just not Atlanta. This is every black city in the country. Let's see, just J.S. Hines, uh, randoms. J.S. Hines, thank you. Appreciate it. Glad to have you. Glad to have you. New York City, absolutely. I've been in I've been in New York a couple of times, and so no matter where you go, I've been out to California. I've been to Los Angeles, and it's the same. I mean, I went to years ago. I visited one of the mega churches out there, which is right in the hood of Los Angeles, and nothing around it but poverty, sheer poverty. Um, you go to Dallas, Jake's old church. I don't know if he even is still there. All of that. I mean, Creflo Dollar. If those of you, again, I live in Atlanta. If you've never been to Creflo Dollar's church, his church is on what we call the South Side of Atlanta. It is in a community, and I wrote about this in my book as well. It is in a community where the average family household income at that time was about $29,000. Poverty for a family of four is about $22,000, right? So barely above the poverty line for a family of four. But those of you, myself included, I know what it's like to try to live on something, you know, $2,000, $2,500 a month. Once they take taxes out, once you pay some benefits, and you look at the rent and the mortgages in Atlanta, astronomical. You can't find anything inside the perimeter or inside the city for under $1,500 or $2,000 a month. It is crazy. And so it is ironic to me that it just boggles my mind that the churches is not doing more. Oh, but and what's worse is that we're not demanding more with the tithes and the money that we give to the church, right? I don't get it. Um, Jan Hines says if every church adopted two homeless people, it would end homelessness overnight. Absolutely, absolutely. And you know what? And that wouldn't be difficult to do, and that would make a whole lot of sense. TLX said it's ironic that most black churches are in the hood. It's well, I mean that's where they're that's where their victims are, as I call it. But I said I was going to try to be not try to be as critical of the church, but but I've lived this experience. I've lived this experience. I watched my mother, my family members live this experience. So I am hard on the church because I come from the church and I understand it. So yeah, absolutely. It is just the homelessness is just incredible. And in our communities, you drive up and down the street, and you're like church, church, homeless, 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 church, homeless. I mean, and it's just so I think that there are things that we can do to make better use of that money. If we decided that we did not want this money to go to church, if we let's just say in a wonderful, beautiful, futuristic world, there were no churches. And so people in the church, devout Christians or believers would say, well, what would we do? Well, for beginners, for starters, we can take those financial resources and create community centers, create private schools to teach our kids, healthy grocery stores, farmers markets, um, training centers to teach people technology and computer skills, life skills. All billions and billions of dollars can be put to good use. We can help those in our community that are elderly that are not able to. They may have their houses paid off, but they can't afford the taxes. So we can help them to keep their home, to keep that property in the family, right? Pass down generational wealth. We can teach our people about generational wealth and business ownership, and learning a skill. We can create trade schools where we can teach our young men how to be electricians or plumbers or welders or drivers or stockers. We can fund people who have entrepreneurial dreams who are not able to get funding from the banks. Ironically, the same banks that we put our money, give our money to the church, and the church takes our money and put it into those same banks that refuse to loan us money. We can start our own banks where we can finance people who are trying to buy homes and don't have money for down payment. All of that. I mean, this is what these are billions of dollars that we can use. And I'm not being critical of every church because I the last church that I attended, they had a fantastic outreach program. People from the neighborhood could come to the church and get a free haircut. They can get clothes, food. They didn't have to be a member of the church. They didn't even have to stand there for services. So I thought that was outstanding. But that's too few and in between with the number of churches that we have in our community. But it was an outstanding, and I will always send shouts out to that church for doing a wonderful job when it came to that. But that's too few out of the number of collective churches that we have in our community. Let me catch up on some of the comments. Beautifully, yours said, "True, I could have sworn they were feeding people." If you're talking about Creflo's Dollars Church, um, and listen, and I'm sure that they have programs, outreach programs, and even if I don't know for sure, I'm just going to assume that they do because of the amount of money, because it's a church. However, there if you drive through that community, and I've driven through that community a many, many, many times, it is an impoverished community. So outside of people having to come to the church for the outreach, what about doing things in the community? And here's why this is critical, because uh, this same pastor, in the same community, had the audacity to ask his members to fund a $65 million jet for him. That's the bigger issue. Yes, let's say, okay, yeah, they feed the homeless, they do this, they do that. But I'm driving through the community and I see the community in shambles. Um, Buildings are boarded up, businesses are closed down, all kind of stuff. Homeless people walking down the street. It, it, you got the audacity to ask the church members who are part of that community to put up enough money for you to buy a $65 million jet, right? Why don't you have a fundraiser, a money drive, and say this money is going to be set aside to help people in the surrounding communities, to help people who are losing their businesses, to help people who are losing their homes, to help people who want to start businesses, to help people who want to start schools in the community to educate our kids. All of those things instead of saying I need $65 million for a jet. And so that's where I get upset with. Neo said one thing about black people, we know how to open churches and strip clubs. We know how to open churches, we know how to open strip clubs, and then we know how to give our money to title pawn shops. We know how to give our money to liquor stores, which are all in our community. The fast food restaurants that poison us every single day. We know how to give our money to all of that. We know how to give our money away to other ethnicities that come into our community and make money. You know, people who don't look like us. They own the dry cleaners, they own the restaurants, they own the car wash, they own the everything in there. The only thing we own, and we don't own that, but the only thing that we're in charge of are the churches. We don't even in some of the strip clubs. Some of the strip clubs are owned by non-African Americans. But you are absolutely right. Um, and so it's crazy. And so again, I do this because I want to bring awareness to all of this. And this is not to bash the church. This is to point out some things that I think our community could be doing better in correlation, in conjunction with the church. The church is the one. The church holds at any one time, at any one point, the most amount of our financial resources. The church also holds at any one time the most amount of our personhood. You know, the church is where we all go to commute, to convene, to meet up, to socialize. It's also where we put our financial resources. We even have schools that are attached to some of the churches. So churches are a major part of our community. And now, what's starting to happen, those of you who know me know that I have been working in this field, what we call nuns, NONES, which means people who are not affiliated at all with churches. They're called nuns, the non affiliated. And this could be people who are still, people say, I don't go to church anymore, but I still believe in God, all the way to people who are agnostic or atheists. And in the research that I'm doing, what we're finding out is that finally, African Americans are starting to catch up with everyone else. We were, we are the most devout um, uh, group of people when it comes to church, but now we're starting to catch up to the other groups as far as leaving the church. So, we are leaving the church. African Americans are leaving the church, and especially our young people. And when you talk to them, part of the reason why they are is because of the lack. First of all, is what the church is not doing socially as they used to do. But the church is collecting this money. They're not putting the money back into the communities. They're not supporting social justice issues or economic issues or financial issues, with the exception of a few. But on the wholesale, collectively, they're not, and our young people are seeing that. But what's more important, and what's most important, is that they're seeing their parents and their grandparents go through this routine that they've been going through for generations, where they get up Sunday morning, they take their lads to the church, give money, pay tithes, give an offering, go back on Sunday evening, give an offering again, go back on Wednesday for Wednesday night Bible study, give an offering again, and they remain poor their entire life. And so these kids are saying, no, that's not the program I'm under. That's not what I'm trying to do. And so you see a lot of them are starting to leave the church. It's funny, I did a survey in one of my classes on yesterday, as a matter of fact. And these are 18 to 22-year-old young people. And it's a pretty diverse class, but I have about 4 or 5 African American students in there. And this is intro to religion. And the two of the 4 or 5 black students are devout Christians. And I asked them, I said, do you believe that it is the responsibility of the church to tend to social ills like poverty, hunger, homelessness? And they said that they didn't think that it was just the church's responsibility. They thought it was all our responsibility, but they didn't believe that the church had that responsibility. And I said, that's interesting. I said, because I do. I think that, churches are supposed to be non for profit. They don't pay taxes. They're in the community. They're sucking the resources out of the community. And I think that it is part of their calling. It is part of the fabric of what a church is, that they're supposed to be looking out for the less fortunate. And so I thought it was interesting that they did believe that. But I think people, maybe in my generation or millennials, started to become disenchanted with churches because one of the things they stopped dealing with the social issues that we see in our communities. They backed away from a lot of those social issues. And I think, if you ask me, my theory is that um, the powers to be, because all these churches are not independent. They are part of larger organizations, and I think these larger organizations said to these churches that either you back away from some of the social issues, or there's going to be issues. And so we see a lot of churches now who, outside of the whole voting thing, which again is a whole nother discussion, outside of, well, let's make sure we vote, we don't see the social activism from churches that we saw 30, 40 years ago. And so I think there's reason for that. Now the churches are really about me, me, me. Bring me all of your money. What can we do with that, and so forth and so on. I think a lot of our kids are seeing that. So again, for the last few minutes of this, we're going to take some questions or maybe some comments and see what you guys are thinking out there. But let's be mindful of what this indoctrination has done to a lot of us. Those of us who've been fortunate enough to get out, I think we still have to be careful because we have unconscious behavior that stems from our earlier indoctrination in Christianity. And so we have to be careful about how we act and how we move about that. And let's not be comfortable in just having enough. Too many of our people believe that when they die, they're going to go to heaven. They're going to be walking on streets paved in gold, and they're going to have a mansion. And so they deal with, they live and they accept the financial condition that they're in. And then you look around and say, wait a minute, but we're giving 14 to 17 billion dollars a month, a year to the church. 14 to 17 billion dollars with a B, as someone said, with a big fat B to the church, and getting very little from it, very little for it. So let me see. Texas Goddess said, there is a church downtown where I live in Texas where the church gives a Sunday meal but requires the unhoused to sit in their church services. Coercion is wrong. Why not just give? Texas Goddess, I just had this conversation, literally had this conversation about 2 days ago. I was telling someone about a church here in Georgia, in Gainesville, which is about 30, 40 minutes north of Atlanta. But, and I will call his name, the pastor of the church was Jensen Franklin. I don't know if you guys have heard of Jensen Franklin, but he's on television. He has several churches in several states. I think he has one in California, one in North Carolina. And he might have expanded. We left his church back about almost about 10 years ago now. But anyway, when my wife and I was there, we worked in the feeding ministry, as they called it. And so Wednesday nights, first of all, let's begin. Let's go back. First of all, the church would get food donated from the local grocery stores and other people. They would donate the food, so it didn't cost the church any money. So they would donate the food. We would fix the food up, wrap it, put it in boxes, and then as people, we would let people come on Wednesday nights, drive through the line, and get a box of food if you needed it. But the catch was, much like you're talking about Texas Goddess, the catch was, in order to get the food, you had to go to the church service. Um, you had to stay for the entire service, and you had to get one of these bands wrapped around your arm, and then you can leave. And one day, my wife and I, when we found out about it, we said, "Wait a minute, why is that? That's not right. What if a person just don't want to go to church, don't want to be part of the service, but they need to feed their family? What if they work late and get off just in time, in enough time to come by and get the food?" It just felt, and it was just all the way wrong, no matter how you cut it or sliced it. We asked questions about it, but we never got a satisfactory answer. And I thought that was just so wrong because it is coercion, um, and it was just wrong. And I felt so bad for people who had to just sit through those services just so they could get food to feed their family. So I felt bad. So yeah, I absolutely, Catch God is I have been part of a church that did that as well. So you also say, Willie, I'm finding that there are more older Christians who are starting to really question and not believe. A friend called me yesterday wanting support on her religious deconstruction journey. Yay. So first of all, let me ask you who Texas God is. What do you mean by older people? Because I don't know how old you are. I may be older. I might be what you consider to be older. And I only say that because um, I'm in Generation X without giving my age. I'm Generation X, and I do see more people than I thought I would ever see in Generation X starting to at least question. Um, 50 plus, okay, that's part of Generation X. Yeah, I do see. I see some. Yeah, and so I'm excited about that. I think some of these people. Um, I think we kind of fall in several buckets. I think there's those of us who always kind of felt something was off. But being young, we couldn't question it because I grew up where you couldn't question it. But something just never set right. So I was never devout, because some things just didn't make logical sense to me. So I think you have those people who are now just like, okay, because of the internet, because there are more non-believers who are open and out about it, I can talk about it. And then I think there are also those who have always been non-believers, but just now are able to talk about it. Um, because growing up, I didn't know anybody who openly said that they were not believers. It was almost like if you said that, you declared a witch, you'd be burned at the stake. And then I think there are those who you were talking about, Texas Goddess, who are now really starting to question, because with the internet and with now being able to research on your own and being able to communicate with people all over the world, um, and then just becoming mature and understanding and seeing what's going on. I tell believers all the time, I say, here's what you guys are facing. You're facing people who are saying, first of all, let me look at the way Christians are acting, right? So we see that. And so when that happens, other people are starting to say, hmm, I don't know, something's just not right about their actions. And so that leads them into questioning. Then they start to read the Bible, or they start to find easier ways to read the Bible and interpret the Bible and get clarification from the Bible without having to ask a pastor or a minister or someone of that nature who's going to give you the Christian interpretation. And so now they're like, wait a minute, they act like this. Now I'm getting a separate interpretation of these scriptures that I thought was one way. And so now they're, as we call it, their third eye is opening, and they're saying, wait a minute, this doesn't make much sense. This doesn't make much sense. And so now they're starting to deconstruct. And so that eventually leads to finding a spiritual path, something that works for them, or leaving organized religion altogether, or becoming just I don't know. I don't know the answer, so I'm agnostic. I mean, that's what people are starting to say, and they're not afraid to say that. But if you go all the way back to um, Reverend Ike, and I always talk about Reverend Ike because I remember how he got such a bad rap. When I was a kid, people would talk about him every now and then. Oh, he's a clown. He's this, he's that. And he talked about, people know him mostly because of the prosperity gospel. He was kind of like the beginning of the prosperity gospel. But I challenge all of you, if you have time, look at some of his stuff on YouTube, look it up, and get past the prosperity gospel part of it, and listen to what he was saying about there is no God in the sky, there is no Savior coming to save you, that everything that you need is inside of you. He was saying this in the 60s and the 70s, whenever he was out. I think it was the 60s and the 70s, but he was saying this a long time ago. So there have been people um, who have not always been devout or believed or practiced Christianity or religion the way that most of us do today. There's another book. There's a book called Black Free Thinkers by Christopher Cameron, and he's a professor. I think he's at he's at one of these schools, but he's a professor. He wrote a book about black non-believers, black free thinkers, all the way back to people like Frederick Douglass, who was a minister, who was a Christian, but he interpreted it to be differently. Um, Zora Neale Hurston, who was outspoken about her non-belief, all the way up to people in the Black Panther Party, uh, James Baldwin. It's a number of people. So we've always had people in our communities that were free thinkers, skeptics, and non-believers. But I'm happy to see more and more people of the 50 plus Generation X starting to deconstruct, or at a minimum, starting to ask questions. Papa Soul Searcher, what's going on? I appreciate it. Glad to have you join us. Glad to have you. Texas Goddess said, I literally believe that donkeys and snakes talk. Yes, Generation X now have information that we did not have. Absolutely. Not only do we have the information, now we have the ability to ask questions and get clarification. Or we can hold someone's feet to the fire. You know, the whole thing about donkeys flying and snakes talking, I think I went from I think I went from being really nonchalant about it, like it's just part of the story, and never really thinking critically about it, to wait a minute, wait a minute. Snakes talking, donkeys flying. Come on now. So I think I made like a huge leap to where early on I didn't pay much attention to it. It was just part of the stories. Um, to just sort of being like, whatever. Yeah, I guess whatever. He's God. To wait a minute, that don't make a whole lot of sense. As I went through my deconstruction, starting in back in 2015. So yeah, so absolutely. Um, any other questions or comments before we wrap up? And I certainly appreciate all of you for joining me after I've been gone for 3 months. This warms I don't want to say soul, but it warms me inside. It warms the insides of me. So I appreciate it so much. I am certainly appreciative of all of you joining. You can email me or put down topics that you want us to discuss and talk about. But we're going to do this every other week. So next time will probably be, I think that's the 14th. But it's 2 weeks from today on a Thursday. I think we're good with keeping Thursdays. Um, I don't have class, and my extracurricular research is going to be done on Tuesday nights for this writing that we're doing, this presentation that we're doing in November. So I think we're good right now for this time slot and this day. So Thursday, 6 o'clock Eastern time, every other week, join us. I think I have a really good topic for next week. I'll go ahead and tell you guys. We're going to ask the question, um, is God a racist? Is God a racist? And so we're going to get into that. This is probably going to make a lot of my people mad. But I've been good lately. I haven't posted anything to offend anybody on my uh, Facebook page or my Instagram. I'm just trying to decide when I'm gonna go back to doing that, because that always stirred up a whole lot of discussion and arguments and debates. So I might put something out Sunday, um, just to kind of see what's going on out there. But yeah, but we're gonna talk about, is God a racist? We're going to get deep into that. We're going to talk about our people. We're going to talk about how this God, this Abrahamic God, has been treating our people since we've been exposed to Him, since we got exposed to Him. So yes, we're going to talk about that. So I think that's going to be good conversation. When you say, Neo, they not ready for that. They ain't ready, but they gonna get ready. They gonna be ready. It's gonna be like medicine going down. They gonna have to take it. So appreciate it. So join us in 2 weeks. We're going to talk about, is God a racist? And that's going to be interesting. So tell your friends, subscribe to the channel, get your friends to subscribe, and I will see you guys in 2 weeks. Enjoy your long holiday. Again, I don't celebrate holidays, but enjoy your long weekend. Make the best of it, and I'll see you in 2 weeks. Again, thank you guys for joining me. Enjoy. Bye to everyone. Texas Goddess, Neo X, Christine. I have to say bye to everybody individually, because that's just who I am. I'm special like that. Let me go up the list. Let's see. Sharon, how you doing, Sharon? Glad. Enjoy your weekend. TLX, beautifully yours. I already said bye to Neo. JS Hine. I don't want to miss anybody that's on here. I think that's everybody. Yep, that looks like everybody. But thank you, Taisha. I know she might be still listening while she's taking care of baby, but appreciate that. Appreciate you coming through, Taisha. And again, bye to everyone. Some chick named Star. Thank you for joining. Appreciate it. Enjoy your long weekend, and we'll talk in 2 weeks.